How are we all doing today?
Oh,
Good. Good. Fabulous. What is everyone hoping to get out of the business planning session today?
anything I can.
You can, Shauna. Fabulous. How about Anna and Connie? What are you guys hoping to get out of it today?
For me, it's more of a reiteration of what I should be doing because I've had a meeting with my broker already, and sometimes I just need to hear it more than once to get it in my head.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we all need to hear things more than once.
I'm new, so basically anything that I can get started on real estate.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, it is 11 o'clock, so let's get started. I'm sure we'll have people joining us late today because, everybody lives on realtor time. Look, they're already pouring in. So, so we'll just keep admitting them as they join. Um, and oh, hold on just a second because give me just 2 seconds. All right. There we go. All right. Let's get started. So my name is Amy Pittard. I am the instructor for today's session. I know a lot of you had joined me on the 12 days of systems to bring you from ideas into actions that we hosted over the holiday season. We host regular trainings on a regular basis. So hopefully you guys can join us for future training as well. But today we have our Dreams to Reality Business Planning Clinic for Unstoppable Achievement in 2024. We're going to cover this information as quickly as possible. It's to not hold up your day too long. There is a lot of content to cover. If you have any questions, don't hesitate though to stop me. Ask those questions. You can just unmute yourself. You can interrupt me. You can raise your hand there on your Zoom screen, or you can throw those messages or questions that you have in the group chat as well. So lots of options to get those questions answered or share thoughts. I am going to throw a link in that group chat just now, and that's to a spreadsheet we'll be going over here in just a little bit. I do have 17 years. I've been licensed since like 2007. I've had my real estate license. I started with a independent brokerage. Well, actually, originally I got my license because I was doing loans and you needed your real estate license back in the day to do loans in California. Slowly transitioned from loans to an independent brokerage.
Yep.
Hold on, there we go. To an independent brokerage where I lived for several years. Just me and the broker. That's where I learned most of my real estate, was under that broker. And he flew for American Airlines and I did real estate for him. It was a fabulous setup. It was very successful. However, I also worked part-time. That was during the market crash. It was 2007. Probably wasn't the best idea to get in the market at that point, but here I am standing today, so it worked out for me. But anyways, market was tanking. I took a part-time job that carried me through probably about 10 years that I worked part-time and did real estate part-time. One day I finally had this epiphany that happened that I was like, gosh, if I put these hours that I was putting into this part-time job, I could probably, double, quadruple, whatever my income that I was making part-time. So at that point, I let my boss know that, hey, I'm done. I'm going to go do real estate full-time. When I decided to do real estate full-time, I decided I needed the support of a bigger brokerage, mainly because I didn't even know where or how to grow my business. I'd actually never heard the term like lead generation at that point. So I decided it was time to grow my business. So I've changed a couple different brokerages. I started with Keller Williams. I've recently moved over, well, a year and a half ago or so, moved over to Realty One Group Fox. I've learned so much and my business just grew exponentially. That's when I took on coaching. So here I am. Hoping to bring you guys some value to your business today through this business planning clinic, passing on some of the tools of the trade that I've picked up and learned. We are going to start with the basis for goals, and kind of a business plan. And the main thing that you should start with is developing that why. And a lot of people, hold on. Sorry, I have a heater on and it's getting really warm in here. A lot of people underestimate the power of defining your values. So we're going to start with our why and our values, and then we'll dig into the spreadsheet that I shared. We'll start talking about the nitty gritty of trying to figure out what that looks like in your future and how to pull that why and those values into your business plan so that you will propel yourself forward. I am truly a believer in this because the first year I got started in real estate, well, the first year that I started full-time in real estate, I did what most agents, I think, do, which is I said, oh, well, that number looks good. I think I should make that amount of money. So I pulled that number out of a hat. It just was like, oh, well, I just want to make more than I did last year. So here's what I need. So let's throw that into my goals. Well, what happened was that number was bigger than I had actually defined, and it was bigger than my why. And so what happened was, as I started closing transactions and growing my business, subconsciously, my business came to a halt when I reached the income for which I needed to survive that year because I hadn't further defined it. So we'll talk about how to take that further as we move through this class today and how to build on that. But one of the main bases for that is defining those values and defining your why. So let's dig into that. If you've recently joined us, just know that you can absolutely unmute yourself and interrupt me if you have any questions. You can throw them in the chat box. You can raise your hand. Any way to share thoughts or ask questions is totally appropriate. One thing all high achievers have in common is they're working for a big why. That comes from the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book. That is one of my favorite books because it does help give you that path to get from like new agent or wherever you're at in your business to millionaire agent and take it beyond that. And again, one of those, the basis for that is going to be the why and the values. So people often confuse your why and the values. They think they're the same thing. And even though they are connected, they are separate. So your why is your reason that you get up every day to do what you do. It's what keeps you going when you've heard no for the 20th time that day, right? Or the 50th time this week. It's what's going to keep you going. It's what's, you know, when that alarm clock goes off and you're like, man, I'm exhausted today and I'd rather just stay in bed all day. That why is what's going to cause you to put your feet on the floor and keep on going. Your values are your belief system. And that's that deepest level of programming that determines your satisfaction with how you spend your time. And I will tell you that a lot of people, especially agents, spend no time on their values. So they set up these business plans, they set up goals, they don't take their values into account. And then what ends up happening is that their business kind of cannonballs. It kind of explodes in the middle because you get burnout, you're exhausted. You can get up and put your feet on the floor and head towards that why, but if your business is not in line with your values, you're not going to have the energy to continue plugging forward. So we're going to start with our values, right? So in order to define why, you must first find, you may first find that it's helpful to uncover your values. There are several areas in which you want to define your values. Those fall into finances, relationships, personal growth, health, business, and spirituality. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of give you the blueprint of how to start digging into your why or your values today. So we're going to start with finances. Okay, we want to look at each one individually. I absolutely do not recommend tackling all of the areas in one day. Maybe take it 1 week at a time or 1 day at a time. And the other thing is too, sometimes this is a good practice to do with your accountability partner, because it allows you to kind of free up your brain a little bit, them to ask you some questions to dig deeper to get to the bottom. So when you first start this process, so we're going to dive into finances. Again, you got finances, relationships, personal growth, business, spirituality, and health. I'm going to show you what this looks like with finances. So you're going to ask yourself or have your accountability partner ask you what's important to you about that area. So again, we're digging into finances today. So what's important to you about finances, right? This is a good time to just kind of close your eyes and just kind of be self-reflective and really think about like what's important to you about that area, which is why it's good to do this with an accountability partner. So you might say things like freedom, security, right? You may be like, oh, well, it helps me to pay my bills. So if we're thinking, oh my gosh, finances help us to pay our bills, then that's probably relates to security, right? It's our vehicle to live our dreams, right? It's stability, it's money working for me. And you just want to kind of keep brainstorming what finances means to you, which is going to be different than what might be on the screen. Okay, so know that what it might mean to you might be completely different than what's up there. There's no wrong or right answers to these. And then you're going to brainstorm until you have 4 to 5 keywords or phrases. Okay, once you have those 4 to 5 keywords or phrases, what's important to you about finances, right? Then we're going to move on, and you want to put those 4 to 5 items in order of importance. So when we look at this, just scattered brainstorm, freedom, security, vehicle, live dream, stability, money working for me, when I take it to the next step and say, hey, what's the most important thing out of those 5? Well, money is the vehicle to live my dreams. That's the number one thing that money means to me as far as like the importance. Next would be freedom, right? Financial freedom, the ability to do those things. Then I've got security in there, money working for me, and stability. So those are probably my top 5 things when I think about finances. I've put them now in order of priority. And then what we're going to do is that you're going to define what success looks like to you. So when I think about vehicle to live my dreams, what that looks like to me is every financial decision should result in us moving closer to our goals for the future. Right? So every financial decision should result in the goals. So I'm just putting a definition behind each of these things for myself. Freedom, we will have the freedom from any debt, including a mortgage, in turn creating more freedom for how we choose to spend our money. So again, I'm just defining what it looks like to me. Security, we will have 12 months of expenses in the bank at all times to fund all personal and business expenses. Money working for me, we are using our finances to create passive income and wealth. Stability, we will create a passive income that is dependable and reliable on a monthly basis that covers our monthly expenses. So does everybody see how I've broken that down? So when we go into each area, again, we picked finances. I picked kind of brainstormed previously my top 5 words when I worked through this with my accountability partner. Then I put those in order of importance. And now I've put a phrase or a definition of what that means to me with each word. Okay. Now what you can do too is it may not be like a thing for each word. You may create a whole phrase. So this is my value phrase for finances. Okay, and it could be individual or it could be all together. So we will be in or moving towards a position where we have the financial portfolio in place, creating a dependable passive income on a monthly basis that allows us to make choices based on the abundance and not the lack. That we will be able to do the activities that we desire, whether it means trips, activities, or just living a generous lifestyle. That's my financial value system. Okay, so everything that I do now in my business is going to be in alignment with this. Okay, and then you want to do that for each of the areas. Does anybody have any questions about defining your values? All right, step 1 in your business plan is going to be defining your values. Then we're going to take and move that further and move into our why, and we're going to define our why. So what is your purpose, mission, and your need? What fuels you with focus and energy empowers your action, right? Your big why powers your big life. So then what we're going to do is we're going to define that why. And you probably want to take it outside of real estate, right? So most agents, when I talk with them and I ask them, oh, what's your why for real estate? They're like, well, because I want to provide for my family, or we had a bad experience when we were buying a house, so I want people to have a better experience, right? But it's real estate related, right? Real estate's our vessel that's going to get us to our why. it's probably connected to our why, but our why should be bigger than real estate. Okay, so we're going to think bigger. You want to start by asking yourself some questions to get to the bottom of your why. Like, why do I want to do that? What do I want to accomplish? When I'm on my deathbed, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I value most? Right? And then we're going to dig into those further, like why, right? So if we move through this process, some answers might be like, oh, well, my big why for real estate is to pay my bills. Or maybe it's to be successful. Or maybe it's to help people have a better experience than I did. Or maybe I just want to be in charge of my schedule, right? Maybe that's, I want to be home for my kids. So real estate lets me set my own schedule. That's my why. So that would be a small why. So then what we want to do is we want to dig into it further and we want to ask why, right? So you need to keep asking yourself why until you reach the core value of your why. So if I'm like, gosh, I'd like to pay my bills. Why is it important to you to pay your bills? Right? And somebody might respond with, well, because I want to make sure that my kids have a roof over their head. Okay, why is it important to you that your kids have a roof over their head, right? We're going to keep digging into this to find the big why. It probably has something to do with, well, my gosh, in my childhood, my parents lived paycheck to paycheck and they never got to come to any of my activities and events. And gosh, I want to be able to pay my bills and keep a roof over my kids' head because it was so hard for my parents to do that. And I just want to be better, or I want to provide them a better lifestyle. Right. And then why is it important that your kids have a better lifestyle than you? So we want to keep digging into that why. So we take it from the small why, we're going to dig deeper and just keep asking. And then we're going to get to like, what do I value most? Right. So my values, if I looked at all my values after I defined all those areas, yes, Shauna, I can get you a copy of this presentation as well. When I look at all my values after I've completed each area, if I summarized my value system would be to have a happy life of fun, freedom, and abundance. That's when I look at spirituality, family, relationships, business, finances. That would be the summary of my values. Okay. And then it goes, why? Because like, why do I want to live a happy life of fun, freedom, and abundance? And then it would be because I believe there is more to life than just working day in and day out. I believe that God put us here to make a difference in the lives of those we interact with. And I want to be able to have the freedom to have fun and out of my abundance, bless those that I come in contact with. Okay. So when I look at my why statement, that is my why statement. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It doesn't matter whether I'm doing real estate. It doesn't matter whether I'm working a W-2 job. It doesn't matter whether I've started another business. It's this, right? I believe there's more than working day in and day out. I believe that God put us here to make a difference in the lives that we interact with. And I want to be able to have the freedom to have fun and out of my abundance, bless those that I come in contact with. Okay, way outside of real estate. That falls in line with anything that I do anywhere in my life. Should come in contact with that why statement. Okay. So I took my values, kind of summarized them into a value statement, because ultimately your values are usually in line with why we're wanting to make money. And then I put that into my why statement. Thoughts, questions? All right. So now that we have our why statement, so you're going to spend some time looking at your values, defining what those values are to you, what is important to you about each of those areas and what that definition of that is. Then creating that value statement for each area. And then take those value statements, combine them into one single statement, and then create your why out of that. It ultimately should be in alignment with your why. And then that's what's going to keep you going so that when we put this business plan together, it's in alignment with those things. So let me share a different screen with you. If I can figure out how to do that. All right. All right. So this spreadsheet is what I shared already in the chat box. I think I still have it, so I can probably reshare it just now so that everybody who joined late can also see it. So there's a link to this spreadsheet in here. This is what we're going to be working out of for the rest of today's class. So in here, there's several tabs. We'll cover each one kind of tab by tab. So here is finances, or sorry, values. So there's a values tab where you can define your values and put them on here so you don't lose them. So in here, right, we have vehicle to live dreams, freedom, security, money working for me, and stability. So I took all my values, I put the definition, and I put them in order of importance. And then I put in my value statement at the bottom. So you'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with each definition of what that means to me. And then in the bottom is that value statement for like finances. Okay, this way I can keep it top of mind. I'm going to do the same thing for business. I'm going to do the same thing for job, relationships, physical health, and personal life and spirituality. That way you can keep track of them. And as you work through this, and it could take you some time to work through these. Sometimes these get really heavy as you start working through this and you're like, there's no way I can tackle another one tomorrow. We'll push it to next week. That's okay. Take your time. Usually once you've defined your values, this will stay with you for the rest of your life. Sometimes they change or tweak just a little bit, but you don't have to go really in depth on these in the future. You'll just come back and revise them, just a little revision each year. You want to review them. Okay, so the values page is there. There is also a My Why page. Okay, so here's where you can define your why and put it in there. And I did an example for you. So each one of these has an example. When you get this spreadsheet, you'll have access to it on a Google Drive. If you make a copy of it, then it will let you edit your copy of it. So I just did the example of what my why is. There's more to life than just working day in and day out. God put me here to make a difference in the lives of those I interact with. And I want to be able to have the freedom to have fun and out of abundance, bless those I come in contact with. And there's some typos that are really bothering me. All right. I'll go back and fix those later. So anyways, so you're going to put your values on here. Then you're going to put your why. Then you're going to move on to the next tab, which is your dream life form. Okay. This dream life form is what's going to help you determine how many houses you need to sell this year. Okay. You're going to want to scroll all the way to the bottom, which is right here, which is your business expenses. And you want to put in your business expenses on a monthly basis that you have. Marketing, salaries, benefits, payrolls, taxes, fees, lead generation, occupancy, that like if you pay for an office, technology or communications, if you pay for a website or other things, social media ads or whatever, actually that would fall under marketing. Education and coaching, right? Do you have a coach? Are you going to attend your brokerage annual conference each year? What does that look like to you? Supplies, right? Ink, paper, whatever that might be. Your auto insurance costs and equipment and furnishings. There's extra lines there. You're not stuck with those. You can change them around to whatever your business expenses are. And we're going to put that in there. That's going to give you your monthly total. It's going to automatically add this up for you. Then it's going to automatically calculate out what your annual total is. Now, really important. If your business expenses are less than $1,000, okay, less than $1,000. Also keep in mind too that like your annual National Association of Realtors dues, oftentimes those only come due once a year, but we're going to break those down into a monthly amount. So think of those things that you only pay once or twice a year too. Okay. If your expenses come to less than $1,000, just round up to $1,000 so that your business expenses for the year are $12,000. You're like, Amy, why did you just tell me to do that? Well, because if you're spending less than $1,000 on your business, it's probably because you're a brand new agent. As you grow your business, you're going to have more expenses. We're going to have more mailings that we're sending out. If you were part of our 12 days of systems class and you've decided to implement some different lead gen steps in there, that maybe now you're going to host events, or you're doing a VIP group, or you're stepping up your game on your open houses, you need to invest in signs, your cost is going to go up as your business grows. It's supposed to. That's how it works. If you look at the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, it gives you on the budget model, it'll give you a breakdown of what you should be spending in each category. in order to stay in line and be headed towards millionaire real estate agent status, right? Ultimately, we have to invest in our business to grow our business. So that's why I say if your expenses fall to less than 1,000, round it up to 1,000. Nobody should have less than $1,000 per month written in there, so that as your business grows, you can account for that. Okay. So you're going to put in your business expenses, whatever those turn out to be. For some, it may be way more than $1,000. That's okay. Depends where your business is at. Then the next section, as we scroll up the page, is going to be our personal expenses, right? For some, you might not have anything in here. Maybe you have a spouse that works or a significant other that works, and your significant other is really happy at their job and they want to work there forever. And that covers all your household expenses. You can just skip over this. If you're paying your household expenses out of your real estate income, or you want to be paying it because maybe you want to set your spouse or your significant other free from their job, then you can put them all in here. So you're just going to put whatever is in your monthly expenses here. You're going to put in that monthly amount, and it's going to automatically calculate in some taxes for you to figure out your tax amount, and then it's going to multiply that by 12. Okay, I'll show you where it's pulling that number from here in a minute. Okay, but it does add taxes back in. On the business expenses, it does not add taxes back in, because all those things, check with your CPA or tax accountant, all those things should be a tax write-off. So we don't actually pay taxes on the money that we make that goes towards our expenses. Okay, that's the difference there. Okay, once you put in your personal expenses, then we're going to go up the page further to the top of the page. And here is where we're going to dream big and put in our thriving goal. Okay, the monthly is optional, year is required. Okay, so this might be like, gosh, I'd really like to take my family on vacation this year. I have one of my coaching clients, he is like, I'm going to take my wife to Italy. We're going to be gone for 3 weeks. That's my goal this year. And I said, okay, well, now you need to figure out your budget. Like, what's the hotel going to cost you? What's your airfare going to cost you? How about, expenses while you're there, paying for food and activities and excursions and stuff, right? So he put that number in there. Maybe you want home improvements. Maybe there's like, you want a kitchen remodel. Maybe you don't own a home and you're like, man, as a realtor, I'd really like to own a home this year by the end of the year. So here's what I need for my down payment, right? Maybe it's just that, gosh, I would like to get out of debt. Maybe you attended our building wealth class as part of that 12 days of systems. And you're like, gosh, step one was paying off debt. That's my goal this year, is to get my debt paid off, right? So there's no wrong or right answer here. Maybe you want to go on vacation with friends. Maybe you have a really fancy dog that you would like to buy. Whatever it might be, you're going to put that like beyond just my business and my personal expenses. What do I want to accomplish this year? Right? If you're looking at creating passive income and all your debts paid off, it may be, gosh, I'd like to save up for a down payment on my first investment property. Or I'd like to be able to buy X number of thousands of dollars of Bitcoin, or whatever it might be, right? Or gold, or whatever your investment is going to be in there. It could be that as well. There's no wrong or right answer. So you're going to put those items in here. I just summarized it. Okay. I just summarized it as $100,000. This is where it really comes into play. Number one, we want our dream big, thriving to be in line with our why and our values. And number two, we want it to be specific. Okay. So if I'm like, gosh, I'd like to take my family on vacation this year, I'm going to say, gosh, that's going to be $6,000, because we want to go to, and you know, again, be specific. So you may be like, I want to go to Hawaii. I'm dreaming of warmer weather right now, of Hawaii. And we're going to stay there for 1 week and at a resort, right? So whatever that would be, you can be specific in there. I have home improvements here, backyard remodel. If I was being honest in, on this example, I've had this one for a little while though. I would say I want to build a barn. Build barn. Okay, and my barn is going to be probably like $80,000 by the time we do everything. Okay, maybe you want to pay off debt. So maybe you're like, oh, I've got $5,000 worth of debt, or maybe it's 20,000. And then you're like, oh, vacation with friends, right? That's on my list. So I'd be like, oh, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go with my friends? Or maybe instead of friends, maybe it's like vacation with spouse. And I've always wanted to go to like one of those places that have the little huts that are on the water, right? So maybe I'm like, I'm gonna need $10,000 to go on vacation with my spouse. And I'm gonna take dog off the list because I don't really want a dog. I have enough dogs. I've got 3. Okay. It's gonna total those all up for me. So 6,000 plus 8,000 plus 5,000 plus 10 is a total of 101,000. Again, it's gonna add in my tax rate here, which I'll cover in just a second, to calculate in the taxes that I need to make on that income in order for my take home to be enough to cover that expense. Okay, so you're gonna dream big here. And again, you might be like, to this year, I just want to pay off my debt, or I just want to set up an emergency fund. And that might be the end of your like dream big thriving goal this year. That's totally okay. There's no wrong or right answers to this. I just want you to think bigger than what you think you can get to. Okay. I come from a really strong Dave Ramsey background. I've taught, I don't know how many years of Dave Ramsey classes. He's like the money guru. Well, one of them. He's a money guru. Talks about like paying off your debt and stuff, and then setting aside 15% of your income to retirement. So here on the bottom of this top section here, you'll see it says retirement 15%. I've been taught that you should save 15% of your income and to put towards retirement. Okay. And that could be like into a traditional like IRA or a Roth IRA or 401k, or it could be, gosh, I'm going to put 15% of my income into setting up my investment portfolio or investing in gold, whatever that is, but 15% towards kind of your retirement plan. And just so you guys know, I'm going to add this to my tax rate. Okay. If you're on a team and you have like a split that you're paying to your team, then I usually factor that in right here as well to my tax rate, because it's going to calculate out my income and then calculate out taxes. That's money that I'm paying out of my income. So that's why I do it that way. I also give money out of each of my incomes, which I give 10%. And so I add that into my tax rate. So if when I do my taxes, my tax rate is 20% or 25%, right? If you have a really good tax person, you might be closer to like 10% or 5% tax rate, but we'll just go with, hey, my tax rate is going to be 25%. And then maybe I want to add in retirement and tithe to that. So that's an extra 25%. So then I'm going to bump this tax rate up to 50%, because then that accounts for the money that I'm going to give and the money that I'm going to use for investing, without having to come up with a flat dollar amount for those items, because those are based on a percentage of income versus a flat rate. That's why I do it that way. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. You don't have to do it that way. You can leave it at your tax rate. If you're like, Amy, I have no idea what my tax rate is, 25% is a great starting point. Okay. Then we're going to scroll over here to our right, which gives us this box, which just summarizes everything. So this is going to take our personal and business, whatever we put in those squares, and total it. And then it's going to put in our Thrive goal here. Our Thrive goal there, which is just totaled from down here. So it adds those both together. Gives us our grand total to Thrive. That covers all of our business expenses, our personal expenses, and our Thrive goals. And then it's going to ask you what your average commission is. Okay, if you haven't closed any transactions, you can ask like somebody else in your office, what's the average commission or average sales price? And what do we usually make, right, on a deal? So you can figure that in there, factor that in, and you can put in your average commission here. If you have, okay, over here, this team split, if you pay a split to your brokerage, right? We have a gross income and then we pay X number of percent to the brokerage. Maybe you're on a 70-30 split or an 80-20 split. You can factor that in here and put it into your tax rate. So if I'm like on an 80-20 split, then I might bump this from 25 to 45%. Versus if you're on like a flat rate, then you may want to take it out of your average commission. Okay, so if my average commission was 13,500 is the average commission based on sales price and average gross commission. And then maybe I have a transaction coordinator that I pay for every transaction that's $300. And maybe I have like a set fee that I pay to my brokerage per transaction. Then we could take that and delete it out of our average commission. So instead of 13,500, I might be like, oh, this is going to be 12,650. Subtracting out a transaction coordinator fee for each transaction and a transaction fee that you pay to your brokerage if you're on a flat transaction fee. Okay. So just a couple of options there for that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. What it's going to do is it's going to take your total that you need to make. It's going to divide it by your average commission, and it's going to tell you how many transactions you need to close in 2024 in order to meet your goals. And again, it's already factored taxes back into this, or your team split or tithe or whatever else that you wanted to factor in. Okay, that's how this spreadsheet works. So you're going to fill in the yellow right here. Green are auto calculating. Yellow is things that you're going to fill out, and blue is optional. Okay, so you're going to fill in your business expenses, your personal expenses, and then your Thrive goals. You're going to fill in your average commission, and then it's going to calculate everything else out for you for your dream life form. Okay, then what it's going to do is we're going to carry that over and we're going to further define it on our economic model. Okay. So our economic model, we're just going to fill in the yellow stuff. It's pulling the data from the last spreadsheet over to this spreadsheet. So it's giving us our gross commission goal. So again, on our dream life form, here's our gross commission goal. It's just going to pull this over into this other form. Okay. You're going to put in your cost of sales here. This would be like anything that happens that's just transactionally based. So a cost of sale would be like the fee to your transaction coordinator if you pay them per transaction. That would be a cost of sale. If the sale doesn't happen, you don't pay that fee. That's how you would define cost of sale. Okay. You're going to define your ratio of buyers to seller clients. So is your ratio like 25% sellers to 75% buyers? Is it 50-50? Is it 60-40? Once you fill in the ratio of sellers, let's say that our ratio is 60% sellers, it's going to automatically calculate the buyer percentage for you. Look, I took math out of this for you. You just have to fill in your numbers. If you're a new agent and you don't know what your ratio is, starting at a 25% seller ratio is usually probably about average. Most new agents, they find it easier to collect buyer clients versus listing clients. Your goal should be to grow that over time, but that's a good place to start is a 75-25 split. Your goal to grow it over time is going to be closer to like a 50-50 or a 60-40 is your goal. Because as we talked about on our 12 days of systems training, if you want to catch up on those, if you weren't part of those, they're on my YouTube channel. But we want to be listing focused because listings, we leverage those for additional leads. Okay. So you're going to fill in that percentage there. The next step is to fill in number 4 is your listings taken to listings sold. Okay. So how many signed listing agreements did you have last year and how many of those actually sold? If you're like, Amy, 100% of them sold, then put 90% here. Don't ever put higher than 90% because at some point there's going to be some fallout. Especially as you grow your business, you're going to have people that sign a listing agreement, they decide not to sell. You're going to have houses as the market tanks that they just decide, gosh, well, I've got to drop the price to a point that it just doesn't make sense for us to sell. So you're going to have ones that don't get all the way through that process for a signed listing agreement. Okay. If you're a newer agent, you can just use what's on this form until you have some more stats of your own to be able to build this form based on your track record instead of guesses. Listing appointments taken on or gone on to listings taken is number 5. So that's how many listing appointments do I have to go on in order to get that signed listing agreement? When I originally did this form, I was like 100% because I only sat down with people that I knew that were in my sphere of influence that I knew were going to sign with me. That's not realistic. As we grow our business, you're going to have more appointments that you go on than listings taken oftentimes. So a good average there is 75% conversion ratio if you don't have your own numbers. Okay, the next line, line 6, is going to be the conversion ratio of buyers taken to buyers sold. So how many buyers do we work with? Do we get those buyer representation agreements or agency agreements signed that actually close on a purchase? My conversion ratio there is less than sellers because I usually have more buyers that bow out of the market than I do sellers. So it's got 75% there. Again, you can use your own ratios, or if you're a new agent, that's a great place to start. And then buyer appointment gone on to buyer signed agreement would be number 7. What's your conversion ratio there? How many buyers do I sit down with to get that signed buyer's agreement? I've got 90% there. Buyers are usually eager to get started. They're usually way more willing to sign than a seller is. They're like, let's just give me a house. I'll sign anything. They're happy. So I've got 90% there. The next line is you want to put in your average sales price for a listing. And then the next line, 8B, is your average sales price for buyers. Okay, those might be different. Your listings might be higher than your buyers, or maybe your buyers are higher than where your listings are. So it gives you the ability to break that down by buyers and sellers for average price. The next section, 9A and B, is an average commission. Keep in mind, I'm just using these as an example. I am truly not stating this should be your average commission or anything to that effect that would put me in a questionable position when it comes to that. I just have to plug something in here for the spreadsheet to work properly. So you should calculate out what your average commission is in your office or for you as an individual agent. If you're a new agent, check with other agents in your office to ask them what the average commission is in your office, or what the commission normally is, or what you should be charging. Check with your mentor. Again, I'm not saying what it should be or that this is it or anything. I just plugged some numbers in here. I plugged in 2% just so it would calculate appropriately. Okay, so 9 is where you're going to plug that in. Down here, it's going to calculate this out for you, the economic model. It's got, let's see, E20 minus, hold on, I'm just trying to figure out where it's going. Oh, it's our gross income minus our expenses. So it's pulling over our business expenses and our cost of sale. So it took that number from the previous spreadsheet down here at the bottom, 162,667. It's subtracting out our cost of sale and our expenses to get our net income. Okay. Then down here, and it calculates that all for you. It's just for your own knowledge of what you need to make net income wise in order to pay all your bills. Then down here, your seller listings, it automatically calculated out that we're going to have a 25% of seller listings. Our gross income for sellers means we need to have total sold volume. It's going to calculate this all for you. What's the total sold volume based on the input that you put up above and the average sales price? This means that you need to have 4 sold listings in order to meet your goals based on what we put on the previous spreadsheet. Okay. At an 80% conversion ratio of signed agreement to closed sale, that means we need to get a total of 5 signed listing agreements this year to close on 4 listings. Okay, and then our conversion ratio for signed, for appointment to signed was 75%. Again, it's just pulling that from that upper block. Means that we're going to need to attend 6 listing appointments to get 5 signed listing agreements to close on 4 listings. Okay, does everybody see how that worked? It's already done all this math for you as long as you input those numbers in the yellow section. Then it's going to break down your buyers. 75% of our business is going to come from buyers if 25% comes from sellers. So our gross income for buyers needs to be 122,000. It's going to break down and tell you what you need your sold volume to be based on your average sales price and the commission that you inputted at the top. Total buyers sold is 11. Okay, so we need to close on 11 buyers. If our conversion ratio is 75% from signed agency agreement to a closed buyer, we need to get 15 buyer agreements signed. And our conversion ratio here is 90% from what we put on up top for buyer appointments to signed agreement. We need to sit down with 16 buyers to get 15 signed agreements to close 11 buyers this year. Okay, this is figuring out the basis for our goals. Questions? Thoughts? Does everybody see how this works?
This is amazing. Yeah.
Good.
I'm just sitting here trying to take it all in. Like, wow, yeah. This is
Good.
awesome.
Good. All right. So we defined our values, our why. We put in our dream life form with all of our expenses and our above, like, I want to thrive goal in there for the year. Then we calculate our economic model. Notice these are all in order. So we're just working across the tabs minus the first two tabs. We'll come back to those first two tabs here at the end. All right. Then we're going to take this economic model. We need 4 closed listings and 11 closed buyers to reach our goal. And we're going to put that into what we call our GPS, or our goals, priorities, systems. If I can get that tab to open for me today. There we go. Goals, priorities, strategies. Okay. Here's where we're going to put in our 2024 goal. And there's lots of ways to do this form. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, and this is the way it must be done. But most people, when they first approach this GPS form, it becomes overwhelming and they don't know how to break it down. So we're going to make it a lot easier and break it down so it's tangible. So based on the previous form, I need 16 and 6, which is 22 appointments for a total of 15 closed transactions. Okay, so over here on my 2024 goal, I needed 22 plus appointments for 11 and 14, 15 plus closings. Now notice it says plus there because I always take more appointments and I'll always have more than 15 closings, but I need at least 15. So 15 plus closings. So that's my 2024 goal, or my year at a glance. That's what allows me to start moving my life towards my why and my values and into that area of thriving. Okay. Now, when I break this down further, I needed, we can either look at it via appointments or via closings. So let's look at it based on appointments. So if we go back to our economic model, I needed 6 listing appointments and 16 buyer appointments. Okay, so flick back over to the GPS. 6, not 56, just 6. And 16. Okay. So I need 6 listing appointments this year, and I need 16 buyer appointments. Now, if we were doing this really good, what we would do is we would go like this and go 6 plus and 16 plus. Because again, we would take more. We're not limiting ourselves. Then what we're going to put on this bottom section, so those are our priorities. So we have our goal is 22 appointments with 15 plus closings. Our priorities are going to be listings, buyers, and what do I need to learn, grow, know, do, right? Who do I need to become in order to make this happen? So over here under listings, you know, if you've attended any of my trainings on lead generation, you should have 5 methods of lead generation. The first one should be your database. Okay, your circle of influence or your sphere of influence. Your second should be leads from listings. Okay, those are like the non-negotiable. You should be generating leads from your database and leads from listings. Okay, so those are my top 2 options here. Then you should choose 3 additional. I don't know how to count to 3, just so you know, in case you saw me throw 4 up there. You need to have 3 additional forms of lead generation. If you're like, Amy, I don't even know where to start, you can tune back into my YouTube channel. I'm sure Abby will throw the link on there in the chat box at some point where you can find my YouTube channel. You can subscribe to it. Last December, we did 12 days of lead gen. And by last December, I mean December of 2022. We did 12 days of lead gen. I covered 12 different lead generation models and things that you could do to generate leads following those models. This last December and January, I did 12 days of systems to move you from ideas into action, where we also talked about lead gen, how to take your lead gen and like really blow it out of the water. Also how to interact with your database and how to generate those leads from listings. So it's all there. Anyways, so we're going to choose 3 additional lead gen methods. For this example, I just have open houses, farm, and social media. Okay, there's like hundreds of different ways you can lead generate. There are no wrong or right answers to what you choose. And I always recommend that when we are getting started with our lead gen, that we really focus in on one form of lead gen outside of our circle of influence and leads from listings. And that we build systems and processes around that form of lead gen. We gain consistency in it, and then we move on to the next one. We're continuing to run that first one consistently as we're working our second one and building those systems and processes there. So when I look at my goal here, I'm going to have database, leads from listings, then I have open houses, farm, and social media. 5 forms of lead gen. I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to get 1 listing. Actually, I'm going to get 2 listings from my database this year. That's my goal. Leads from listings is I'm going to generate at least 2 additional listing leads from my existing listings that I'm going to have this year. And then I'm going to host some open houses, and I'm going to get 3 appointments from, or 2 appointments from those open houses. Okay, I'm not worried about generating any listings from my farm this year or even from social media. My focus is really going to be on perfecting those open houses. Okay, so if I take this and add it up, I got 2, 2, and 2, which equals 6. So that's where my appointments should come from. So now I kind of have my brain wrapped around where my listings are going to come from for 2024. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for buyers. So on my buyers, I have database, leads from listings, open houses, farm, and social media. So from my database, I'm going to pull 4 buyer appointments from my database. I'm going to say 6 leads from listings for buyers, because I'm going to have at least 6 listings over there. I'm going to get 6 signed agreements. So I'm going to get at least 1 buyer per signed listing agreement. Okay. If you're really doing it well, then all of your sellers are also buyers. So that counts that, and you don't even have to worry about the leads, but we won't talk about that. Then we've got open houses. How many buyer leads am I going to generate from open houses? And I'm going to say I'm going to generate 4 buyer leads from the open houses that I'm going to host. And then I am going to be working my farm. So I'm probably going to get 1 buyer from my farm. I'm going to get a referral or something from somebody in that farm that's going to make it worthwhile this year. And then 1 buyer from my social media lead generation for a buyer. Okay, that gives me 4 plus 6 is 10, plus 4 is 14, plus 1 is 15, and 1 more is 16. So 16 buyer appointments, that's where they're going to come from. Okay, is this helping people to break it down and make it easy? Yes.
Yes, I think it's definitely helping, because it's also showing me where when I was working on my business plan, this is going even farther, a little bit more deeper into narrowing it down. And I like that.
Good, good. Perfect. Our third column is going to be what do we need to learn, grow, know, do, hire, be, right? So this other column is what needs to happen in order to make that. So maybe you want to attend your annual real estate conference for your brokerage. For us, that's Summit. So maybe I want to be like, I'm going to attend Summit. That's going to help me because I'm going to learn and grow and make connections there. It's going to be amazing. Maybe you actually need to use your database. Maybe you can't work your database if you're not actually using it. Or maybe you need to create systems and processes. What systems and processes do you need to create? Maybe you're like, I need to create an open house process, or I need to create consistency in my farm. And maybe you're going to read 1 book a month, right? And then maybe part of that, you're like, Amy, you've given me so many ideas and you're telling me I'm going to grow my business. And oh my gosh, I probably need help to make this happen, right? I don't remember who it was that asked, we were in the middle of one of our other trainings, about the VIP. And he was like, this seems like it's going to take a lot of bandwidth to roll out. And I said, yeah, it is going to take a lot of bandwidth to roll out, right? You do anything well, it's going to take a lot of bandwidth. So at some point, you need to hire an admin. You need to hire somebody to take on your emails and manage that for you. You need to take on somebody that can manage your database for you. So maybe you can go from like, gosh, I'm not even using my database to like, somebody else is managing it for me. They're just telling me who I'm supposed to call on a daily basis. They're making sure the newsletters go out. They're making sure that all the information's in there, right? Tracking all that down. In case you're like, oh my gosh, that's me, Amy. I'm going to interject for just a moment. Our sponsor for this class is Cyberbacker NorCal, somebody who's near and dear to my heart. If you look at the other attendees, we have Cyberbacker Avi and Cyberbacker NorCal that are both on our class today. Cyberbacker Avi is my personal cyberbacker. She is my admin. She takes all these recordings and posts them to my YouTube channel. I don't even have to do it anymore. I just show up for the classes and teach them, and she posts them for me. She manages my database. She sends out thank you cards. She sends out happy birthday cards. She posts all my social media stuff. So if you're like, part of that might be hire an admin, might be part of your growth scenario. If you're interested in learning more, you can just throw it in the chat box. We can make sure to connect with you after this class and help see if Cyberbacker might be a good fit for you, but it is an affordable solution to hire a great admin for your business. So anyways, there you go. Learn, grow, know, and do. Just so you know, I have put 1 book a month on my commitment now for 3 years. This is the first year it's actually going to happen. Okay, because something else that has to take place is that you can't just like say, I'm going to read a book a month. You probably need to define what books you're going to read. And then you need to put time on your calendar in order to do that. But we'll get to those steps next. And I live 30 minutes from town. So I usually listen to music on my way to and from town. I go into town often. I'm now listening to books. I've got an Audible subscription that I've had for a really long time. I'm now utilizing that Audible subscription. Maybe in between showings, you can start listening to books. So just some things to keep in mind there. Okay, so that's how you're going to break down these goals, priorities, and strategies. Okay, we're going to break it down further, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So we'll dig deeper into that in a moment. So we're going to go from our GPS though. Any questions about the GPS before I move on? Goals, priorities, strategies. I just took it from the economic model. I put it onto this sheet and then I broke it down where those leads are going to come from. So I know where I need to focus. Okay. We're going to move in, then the next step in your business planning is going to be your growth plan. Okay, list 2 accomplishments max per month for which you believe are going to help you grow over the next 12 months to reach your goals. You can break those down by month, and you should have both personal and professional goals on there. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my spreadsheet. There we go. As an individual and in your career. So as I mentioned before, Summit is our conference. So we might be like professional. I'm going to attend Summit in February because that's when it is. Maybe in my personal for January, I'm going to start. I can't spell either, just so y'all know. ART, start T25 workout program. Right? So what am I going to do that's going to help me grow? It could be that like, instead of that, maybe you're like, man, I need to hire a coach. So in my professional in January, I'm going to hire a coach to help me stay on track. Or maybe you're like, instead of a coach, that's too big. Maybe you're like, I'm just going to get accountability partner. Right? Get an accountability partner. If you don't have somebody that you're checking in with on a daily basis or a weekly basis that's helping push you towards your goals in your business, go find somebody to do that. I recommend, if you're finding somebody on a professional level, that you find somebody that's in about the same place in their business as you are, that is pushing for the same place in their business that you are. So if you're like, man, I need to close 22 transactions this year, then you want to find somebody that's kind of in the same boat. Maybe you're like, man, I closed 6 to 8 last year, or I closed 7 transactions last year. This year I'm aiming for 22. I need to find somebody that's pretty close to that same number. Somebody that's, somewhere between 6 and 10 transactions last year that's looking to push 20 this year, right? Get somebody to help you that can help you practice your objections, that you can run through a listing appointment with, that you can bounce CMAs off of, like market analysis. Like, find somebody to do business with. And you don't have to like invite them into your business, but just somebody to help push you towards your goals. Okay, so step 1 might be an accountability partner. Step 2 might be a 10 summit. March, my professional goal might be, let's see, what's going to move me forward there? I want to read a book called The 5 a.m. Club. Maybe that's your goal there. I'm going to revamp my morning by reading the 5 a.m. Club. Maybe on a personal level up here in January, in order to help me grow, maybe my January goal really should be start journaling. Or maybe I'm just going to start a thankfulness journal. Right? Start small. I'm just going to write down what I'm thankful for at the end of each day. I'm going to find 3 to 5 things to write down that I was thankful for that happened well that day. Right? Maybe that's what I'm going to choose to help me grow. So you're going to spend some time filling this out. It could be the books that you're going to read, right? I said on my GPS that I was going to read a book a month. So maybe here is I'm going to define, is it going to be a personal or a professional growth development book, and what book am I going to read on a monthly basis? Are there other conferences or activities or events? Maybe I really like Tom Ferry and I'm going to go attend one of his events this year. Then I'm actually going to like pull up his calendar and see what events he has and which one's near me, and I'm going to put that on my calendar for this professional growth plan for that month. Okay, we're not just going to be like, August sounds nice, I'm going to attend. No, because what happens if there isn't one in August? So we actually need to look and see when they're planned for so that we can put it on our calendar so we can buy the tickets and make it happen. Okay. Maybe in September, you're like, I'm going to go on vacation. That's going to help me grow, because taking time off is going to help me rejuvenate and replenish my stores and be ready to hit the ground running come October. So on September, I'm going on vacation. There's no wrong or right answer to this, but put one thing each month, maximum 2, that you're going to do to help propel you forward both personally and professionally. Any questions about your growth plan? Okay, if you could put on here, if you're like, man, I really want to blow open houses out of the water this year, you may look across the country and identify 1 or 2 other agents that are just killing it with open houses. And you may be like, hey, in April, I'm going to reach out to Peggy Sue about open houses. Right? Maybe you want to go learn from Peggy Sue about what she does with her open houses. So that could be on here. Okay, no wrong or right answers, but you want to fill this in with your plan, because we're going to make sure we put these on our calendar. Okay, any questions before we move forward? Okay, the next thing is not on the spreadsheet. Sorry, you're going to have to take notes now. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to plan out your year. Okay, we're going to take these things that were on our growth plan. We want like a whole 12-month calendar. It doesn't have to be like wall size. It can be just like printed pages. It can be like, whatever. But we want to make sure that we have that printed calendar up there. And then we're going to start with our personal and vacations. Okay, our time off. You're going to put that on your annual calendar first. Can somebody tell me, either in the chat box or unmute yourself, what you're going to put on your calendar first?
Vacation.
Vacations. That's right. Vacations and personal time. Days off, holidays. When are you going to be gone? Might not be vacation. Like Christmas may not feel like a holiday for you because you may go to your family's house and maybe it's stressful, but you're still going to be gone and not doing business. So put that on your calendar. It's a personal thing. Okay. Put those things on your calendar first. Then you're going to put non-negotiables. You might want to look back at this growth plan list and be like, Summit, that's in February. That's a non-negotiable. It only happens once a year and it's on February 12th through the 15th. So I'm going to be gone. So you're going to mark that off your list. Okay. And put it on that calendar for the year. We are going to pre-plan our calendar for the year. Okay, this is going to include our next step, which is if we're going to bring, leads from open houses in, how many of those are we going to have in the first quarter? And how many open houses do we have to host to get a lead? And which weekends are we going to host those open houses? We're going to put those on our calendar now so that we know on September 15th in 2024, we're hosting an open house. Because here's what we need on our calendar. We need to know that when somebody rings us and they're like, hey, would you like to go camping at the beach with me on September 24th? You can be like, oh, man, I would like to, but I can't. I'm committed to hosting an open house that weekend, and I don't have any other weekends I can move that to. I already have other things spoken for. I'm so sorry, but I would love to be able to plan something with you next year, right? So you know what you're giving up, and you can trade that. You can be like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. But you just need to know what you're trading. So if it's not on our calendar, we don't know what we're saying no to. We're always saying no to something. So make sure that you plan that year in advance, put your personal stuff on there, and then start filling in professional stuff. And we're going to continue filling it in as we work through this. So our next step looks a lot like the original GPS that we planned, but this one's going to be based on a 12-week goal. So we've got an extra line in here. So again, this was going to be, hold on, I'm going to stretch my memory, 22. Oops, I don't even know how I did that. Hold on, let's see. 22 appointments. It still doesn't really like me. 22 appointments, which is going to equal, oh, I think it was 14 and 4, 6. Oops, I don't think that was, well, let's go with that. 22 appointments for 16 closings, right? Whatever was on that economic model or on our original GPS, we're just going to push over here to this one. So in 12 weeks, so if this was our 12-week goal, this usually means once a quarter. So we're going to look at January through March, right? That's our first 12-week period of the year. What do I need to accomplish in order to reach that annual goal in my first quarter of 2024? We need to have, oftentimes what we do is we just kind of divide it by 3. So I'm going to say 8 appointments, and we need to put 16 divided by 3 would be 5 plus a little bit. So we're going to round that to 6. So I'm going to have 8 appointments with 6 properties in contract. Actually, because this is January to March, what you really need to have in is, okay, hear me out here. We need to have 6 closings in the first quarter. And then we need to set ourselves up for success in quarter 2. So we probably already need to have some properties in contract for that. So we need to have 6 plus properties. So I'm going to go with 8 plus properties in contract or closed in the first quarter. Because that's going to set me up for closing them, right? If they're in contract coming out of the first quarter, those are going to close in the second quarter. So it's going to set ourselves up for success. Which is why we usually talk about business planning in October. Okay, keep this in mind too. Mental note, next year, the end of 2024 comes up. October, we should be putting together our business plan for 2025 so that by the end of October, we've solidified our 2025 business plan. And by November, we can start executing that plan so that number 1, we finish the year strong for 2024. And number 2, we set ourselves up for those January closings that we need to have in order to hit our goal for 2025. So ultimately, business planning should happen in October, but it's never too late to put a business plan together, which is why we're doing this today. Okay. From our original GPS, I know that we had listings, buyers, learn, grow, know, do. So here, part of my problem with my listings was that I don't even have all my contacts in my database. So in the first quarter, I need to put all my contacts into my database in order to get a listing out of that database. And then I'm going to create an interaction plan for my Met database or my connected database. If you're like, Amy, what does that mean? That just means, how are we going to interact with them? How many emails are they going to get? How many times are we going to call them? Are we going to text them? Are we going to interact with them on social media? Are we going to invite them to events? If you're like, oh my gosh, this feels overwhelming. Again, if you go back through my 12 days of systems to bring you from ideas into action, Abby put the link in the chat box. What is that thing up there in my upper screen? In the chat box. You can go back and watch that. We talked about how to take your database to the next level and what kind of interactions you should be doing with that database. But maybe you need to create that action plan for your database. Yes, Sarah.
Amy, when you said to import all contacts from the database, that's importing contacts, you mean into your database? So I'm trying to figure out where the contact's coming from.
Yeah, get all of my contacts into the database. That might be like your people on your phone. It might be people on social media. It might be all those like sign-in sheets that you had from open houses last year that you never actually put in the database. So all
Yeah.
those contacts that you have floating around in random places, that should all be in there.
Yep. Got it. Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay, so that might be like my action steps for the first quarter for listings. It may be like step 3, maybe like call everyone in database. I'm really not this bad at typing. I don't know what happens when I start teaching. The typing thing goes out the window, right? So those might be your action steps for your first 12 weeks of the year in 2024 for listings. For buyers, it might be, gosh, I said I was going to generate some leads from my farm, but I don't even have a farm. So I probably need to identify my farm area, right? And then maybe my second strategy for that is that I need to create a farm plan, or maybe it's simpler than that, because above farm, we had open houses. So maybe I need to pre-plan open house dates on calendar. And I need to create or define my open house strategy. Strategy. I think that's right. All right. Open house strategy, right? Maybe, and then we need to host, and then I need to host at least 6 open houses. Right? So maybe that's your strategy for buyers, because most of our buyers are going to come from those open houses. Okay. Maybe for learn, grow, know, do, maybe before we can even import our data or our contacts into the database because we weren't using it, maybe we need to identify what database we're actually going to use. What CRM platform or contact relationship manager, in case you want to know what CRM stands for, it's contact relationship manager. What CRM system are we actually going to use? Maybe that is on your learn, grow, know, do. Maybe we need to identify that before we can even put those contacts in that database. And then maybe we need to identify those 12 books that we're going to read this year. We're going to put those on our growth plan from the last tab. Okay. And that might be all that we're committing to for quarter 1. We are not worried about the farm. We are not worried about social media. We're not worried about all those things. We're going to nail these things out first to help bring us the results that we're looking for. Okay. And the reason that we call it a 12-week goal is because we're going to reevaluate it. Come that last week of March, we're going to come back and look at this. Number 1, you should be looking at it on a weekly basis, and I'll show you how to do that here in a moment. But number 2, we're going to reevaluate this. Okay, end of March. How are we doing? How many appointments did I attend? How many properties did I put in the contract, or how many are closed? Right? How many did I identify which books I read? If we're like, man, I was supposed to go on 8 appointments and I only went on 3, then we can go back and look at this and be like, okay, well, how come I only went on 3 and I didn't go on 8? Well, I said that I was supposed to identify a CRM and put my contacts in there and create a plan. And I got a CRM and I put everybody in there, and then I haven't reopened that web page since and gone back to it. So I don't have a plan. I'm not actually interacting with anybody. So those closings all came because I actually did my open house stuff. Right? So this is going to allow us to go back and reevaluate and look what's giving us that return, and if we're accomplishing the steps that needed to be accomplished in order to get what we're wanting to get by the end of the quarter. Okay, at the end of the 12 weeks, This also gives us an opportunity to look at not just that 12-week goal and reevaluate it, but reevaluate where we're at with our annual goal. Is it still realistic? Are we still going to be able to hit it? Are we blowing it out of the water and we need to change it, right? This gives us that option to be able to pivot and change. Oh my gosh, I thought I really liked open houses and I learned that I hate them. You could not pay me to attend another open house. So I need to define a new lead gen strategy because that's not going to work for me. Well, anyways. So, right. So we can pivot and change at the end of that 12 weeks. We might look at our goal and be like, oh my gosh, I had 15, because I've been executing my database, I had 15 appointments this quarter. And I ended up with 10 properties closed instead of 8. And I already have another 3 in contract. Gosh, I'm going to blow this 2024 goal out of the water. So let's go back and relook at what I want to accomplish. Do I want to take a month off on vacation? Do I want to have more closings? What do I want to do? Right? So it gives us that opportunity if we reevaluate our goals on a quarterly basis every 12 weeks, it gives us the ability to pivot and change where necessary. If we're like sticking with our open house strategy and you're like, man, I've hosted 6 open houses and I didn't get any leads from those open houses, but gosh, I know there's gold in them. Then we need to reevaluate. Well, what's our strategy look like for open houses and what do we need to change in order to get the results that we want to get? Let's not wait until the end of the year to reevaluate. Let's look at it every 12 weeks. That way we can make changes to existing strategies, eliminate strategies that we don't like anymore, things that are not working, right? We can evaluate where we need to do that. Questions about your 12-week strategy? All right. What we do after we have our 12-week goal is we're going to break it down into weekly activities. Okay, we're going to take it and break it down into weekly activities. We call this a 4-1-1. I personally like to have my 4-1-1 both personal and professional, because I think it's important to keep all of our action steps in mind when we're looking at it. The original reason it was called a 4-1-1 is because you had like 4 weeks to a month and then like 1 week to 1 day. So you broke it down that way. That's why it was called a 4-1-1. But here we go. So annual goals, right? So our annual goals are up here at the top. For professional, it's I'm going to have 17 plus closings or 17 plus appointments for 12 plus closings. That's going to be real estate. If you have more than one business, you might have like a professional goal for each business there. Okay. On my personal goals, I have 5 areas: marriage, family, finances, health, and personal. I'd recommend having goals in each of those areas for you in your lives. It might make you a better person. You might be a good person already and you don't need those, but I would recommend having marriage or relationships. You could have relationships there if you're not married. It could just be friends, whoever. And then family, finances, health, and personal. For my marriage goal, it was 36 date nights, with one being a spouse only 1 week vacation. The lines aren't big enough, so you can't see that it says the rest of that, but I promise it does. All right. For my family, I wanted 1 vacation with just me and the kids for a week, and then a quarterly family vacation. That was my goal. Let's see. There we go. 12 game nights and 24 family meetings, right? Those are my personal goals. Hold 12 budget meetings for finances, hold 12 budget meetings, and do not exceed my annual budget. For my health, it was way less than 150 pounds. And for personal, I wanted 1 week vacation with just me. So if those things are on my annual calendar or my annual goal worksheet, what do you think I should put on my annual calendar to make those things happen? Right? I should probably sit down in January or October or November and plan out my next year. And I should put those things on the calendar. When are we having our family game nights? When are we hosting our family meetings? When am I going on vacation with my spouse? When am I taking myself on vacation? Right? All those things should be on there, pre-planned, ready to go. If we don't put them on the calendar, it's not going to happen, I promise. They will get forgotten. Okay, back to the professional side. My annual goal was those 17 appointments and 12 closings. We actually tweaked it higher, so it was like 22 and 16, something like that. So whatever that was from the economic plan, it's just going to move over here. My monthly goals, we're going to break this down and review this each month. Oh, that's why it's called a 4-1. I did it backwards. It's 1 year, 1 month, and then 4 weeks. That's how it breaks down. I was like, that doesn't make sense to me, and I can't think about it. So maybe this is for January 2024. Professional. For listings, I need to set 1 listing appointment. For buyers, I need to set 1 buyer appointment. For systems, right? What do I be, know, do, have, right? I need to create a system for interacting with my Met database. And I need to read book number 1 called The Dip. The Dip is a fabulous book, by the way. I did read that one. Right? So we need to break it down on what are my goals just for January. What am I planning to accomplish in January? Then we're going to break it down on a weekly basis. Where are all of my contacts? I need to spend 1.5 hours per day just locating where my contacts are floating about that need to go into my database. I need to create a February newsletter. And I need to talk to 25 people about real estate this week. Maybe it was my January newsletter. I know it's kind of late in January, so we'll say February. Right? What am I doing this week to move towards that 1 listing appointment, that 1 buyer appointment, creating a system for interacting with my database and reading the book? I probably need to have on here too. I need to have read 2 chapters of The Dip, right? Maybe I need to look at the book and see how many chapters are in that book and figure out to finish it this month, how many chapters I need to read on a weekly basis. Right? This is what do I need to do this week? For my personal side, for the monthly, for January, it's have 4 date nights, submit passport application, and solidify vacation plans. It's hard to go to one of those little huts on the water in the ocean if you don't have a passport because they don't exist in the United States. So step 1 was we got to get passports, right? For family, it's having 1 family game night and 2 family meetings in the month of January. For finances, it would have been complete my January budget with family input and review 3 times to assess and adjust. For health, what was my starting point at weight and how do I need to hit my goal? How many pounds do I need to lose this month, right? Weight below 165. And then define personal vacation and plan anticipated dates. So that was my January goal for those items. This week, it's hard to review the budget 3 times if we don't have a budget. So it was create the budget and review. Get passport photos, right? Step 1 towards getting passports. Plan date nights. Eat on track every meal. Have a date night and host a family game night, right? That's what I'm doing this week. So see how we took that from like this big annual goal. We took it and broke it down into a monthly bite. And then we're going to take those monthly bites and be like, what steps, what action steps do I need to complete this week in order to achieve that by the end of the month? Okay. Notice I don't have this week's activities on here, next week's activities, week 3 and week 4 of the month. Notice that's not on here. It's just 1 week at a time because at the end of the week, I need to come back and review and say, okay, this week, did I locate all of my contacts? Yes, I did. They're all in a pile on my desk now. Fabulous. I have it down where everything's at. Did I create my February newsletter? Yes, I did. Did I talk to 25 people about real estate? Oh my gosh, I only talked to 5 people about real estate. I totally forgot to make all of my phone calls. I only made them on Monday. I didn't make them on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. So I only talked to 5 people. So I don't get permission to move on to the next thing until I've completed all these steps, right? Did I read my first 2 chapters of The Dip? Now, I like to have a done list. So, you know, your little computer, it has this strike through option. So here's what I do. If I'm like, man, I found all my contacts, I'm going to copy this and put it down here below. And then I'm going to come up here and hit this little S with the line through it and be like, done. Strike through, because that brings me joy and happiness to cross things off my list. So then I'm going to delete this. So at the end of the week, I'm going to evaluate what was done, what wasn't done, what needs to carry over to the next week, and what new gets to get added to my list. And that's how I'm going to roll every week from now until the end of the year. And each month, I'm going to reevaluate where are we at with the monthly goals for the month of February. How close are we to hitting those annual goals? Right? So I need to have this on my calendar as well, whether it's the last day of the calendar, the last Monday of the month, whatever it is, reevaluate goals. So not only am I reevaluating them every 12 weeks, I'm also reevaluating my action steps on a weekly basis and my monthly goals on a monthly basis. I recommend not leaving this on your computer. Once you create this for the week, print it out, put it on your desktop where you sit down to do your work. You can make it into like a JPEG and save it as your desktop on your laptop or your computer. If you're traveling all the time and you don't actually have a desk, do it somewhere where it's going to stay front of mind. So, you know, every time you sit down to do work, you open up that computer, you see that list of here's what I've got to get done this week. That's going to help you stay focused in addition to your lead gen activities, setting those appointments and then knocking these things off your list to help drive your business forward. Questions about the 411? Okay, once we have our 411 done, and this is going to take time, guys. With everything, this is going to take practice. Okay, set a calendar reminder to like every week to remind you to do this action. It's going to be hard at first to create that consistency and actually do this. So continue to practice it. It's just like everything else in life. It just takes time and practice and create a habit. Okay. The next thing that I recommend doing is creating an ideal calendar. What does your ideal week look like? How many days a week do you want to work? When are you hosting your open houses? What days off are you going to have? What are you doing in the morning? What do you like to do in the afternoon? What do you do in the evenings? What does your ideal work week look like so that you have a starting point in order to put things on your calendar? Now, keep in mind that we also need to, when we put together our 411 each week, we need to review our weekly calendar so that we can look at and see what needs to be changed, because oftentimes these things need to get changed. So on your weekly calendar, the same ways you did your annual one, you're going to put those non-negotiables on there first, your time off and non-negotiable meetings. I color code mine. So like this red is meeting. So like NSCAR meeting, that's the Northern Solano Association of Realtors meeting that I have planned to attend. I'm going to check my emails a couple times a day to make sure I stay on top of emails. I'm going to attend my office meetings. So those things are red. They're on there. I can't move those. I can't be like, hey, broker, can we move our office meeting to 11 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock today? He's going to be like, no, nice try, right? So non-negotiables, things that I want to attend. I have my family stuff in here in light cyan. Right here, I've got like Kaylin's writing lesson. That's something that I want to be at every week for that writing lesson. Not only was she dependent on me for actually like driving her there, but I want to be there to see it. I want to be part of her life. So those things were on there. When my kids were younger and in school, my day ended at 2:30 and then it picked up again at about 7:30. So I had a big gap in the middle of my workday so that I could pick my kids up from school and be there for them to help them with homework. And then I resumed my workday after they went to bed for like an hour or 2 hours. I would knock out maybe my social media posts or those things that could be done that didn't require, me to make phone calls late in the evenings or anything like that. But those tasks could be done in the evening. And I wanted to adjust my day that way because I wanted to make sure I was there for my kids. Right? So it's okay to do that. After my kids got older, they didn't need me as much anymore. I blocked my time out to go horseback riding so that I was committed to horseback riding on Mondays and Fridays. I just replaced my kids with horses. It's okay. I don't have any issues. It's going to be okay. But, and I blocked that time off my calendar so that I didn't make appointments during that time, so that I was committed to going horseback riding and having fun, because fun is part of my values. If I'm not having fun, it's not happening. And work starts to like dip and dwindle because I become miserable. So this is where those values come into play, right? That's why we talked about defining those at the beginning. Number one, it feeds into your why. That's going to keep you going and get your feet hopping out of bed every morning and keep you going when you 50th no for the week. But number two, it's also going to feed into your calendar. What's important to you? Is family important to you? Is fun important to you? Is you're like, man, I just want to meet new people. For me, like, you might be like, I just need to be around people most of my day. That's so important to me. For me, I'd be like, I need to be around people about 30 minutes a day and I'm good. Right? But for other people, that's what feeds you and keeps you going and gives you energy. So you need to plan those activities and events. So figure out what that is and make sure it's on your calendar. Your calendar should reflect that. So on my calendar, back to that, I even have like my shower on here now. Now, if you look at my calendar, just so you know at the beginning, because I actually read the 5 a.m. Club, it was a torturous book, but it was really good information. Just not set up for Heidi's. It has like how you should start your day in the morning with your workout and your journal time and your reading time and reflection time. So now I've got all those things on my calendar. In addition, I've got like feed the animals, because we have horses and chickens and stuff, and they got to get fed in the morning. So I blocked that on my calendar in the morning. I blocked take a shower in the morning, because otherwise, you know what happens is I like feed the animals and I make my husband lunch. And I do all those things I'm supposed to do. And then I sit down and I forget that, oh my gosh, I was supposed to take a shower this morning. And then I've got my first appointment coming up. And I'm like, guess shower's not happening. So now shower's on my calendar. It's always been there. See, it's on there on the screen. So to remind me to take a shower, it's not because I like being dirty. I just get busy. Check emails on there. Then I have my personal stuff. I have my lead generation time blocked on my ideal calendar. Couple hours a day of lead generation. Because open houses were part of my lead gen system, my open house is also blocked on there every Saturday from 12 to 2. And then I have door knocking scheduled before that. So on my ideal weekly calendar, I know that I'm going to door knock on Saturday mornings. I'm going to host my open house on Saturday afternoon. In addition to my lead generation time, I have follow-up time booked on there, and I have admin time. Those spots from my 411 that I just talked about, right? My weekly activities. If we're like, hey, Amy, where do we plug those in on your calendar? Those things usually go in my admin time. So right here, admin time, admin, gray is all admin. That's where I can plug in those activities that need to get done. In addition, those things are also going to be like my open house system and process. That's where I'm going to execute those tasks. I also have appointments, open appointments blocked on my calendar, so that when I'm talking to a potential buyer or seller and they're like, yeah, can you actually, I'd like to meet with you and talk about listing my house. I can be like, absolutely. Does Tuesday or Wednesday work better? And they're gonna be like, Wednesday. I'm gonna be like, great. Would you like me to come at 2 or 3 o'clock? Right? I already have those appointments blocked in there. So all I have to do is now pencil in and change it with where I'm going on that appointment time slot. Makes it super simple. The worst thing that you can do on a listing or a buyer appointment is be like, I'm available anytime. When would you like to meet? Because now they're like, oh my gosh, I don't think I want to work with this agent. She's never busy. She doesn't have any other clients. Versus giving them options. Even if my entire week was open, I'd be like, does Tuesday or Wednesday work better? How about 10 o'clock or 2 o'clock? Which one's ideal? Or morning or afternoon? Right? And they're gonna be like, oh, afternoon. Perfect. How about 2 o'clock on Tuesday? Now I've penciled them in on a time that works for me instead of being at their leisure. And I've also given them confidence knowing that I know what my calendar and my schedule looks like. Okay, so ideal calendar, plan it out there. Know what your week should look like. That way, when we sit down on Friday or Sunday to look at our next week, we can overlap our ideal calendar onto our week and then make adjustments as necessary. Usually when I sit down to do my calendar, this is my ideal calendar, so I'm sitting down on my actual calendar to do it. I'm going to pull up that admin time on Monday. And I'm going to be like, what am I doing during my admin time on Monday? I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. I'm going to pencil it in for those activities from that 411 that are actually going to happen on Monday. That way, when I sit down to admin time on Monday, I'm not like, what needs to get done today? Oh, look at the birds are flying by outside, right? I can be like admin time Monday. Oh, I'm supposed to work on my database. I need 1.5 hours to locate those contacts. That's what I'm doing today, right? So I'm going to have that time pre-penciled in with what I'm going to do as I review that weekly plan. Okay, everybody get that? Questions, thoughts, ahas? Okay. So we did our values, we did our why, we did our dream life form, right? Figuring out how many closings we need in order to move towards our why and our values. We did our economic model, which breaks it down further. We did our GPS, which was those goals, priorities, strategies, coupled with our growth plan for the year. Then we need to make sure that we take time to plan out our whole 12-month year. Then we're going to break it down to a 12-week plan and further break it down into weekly activities that we're going to put on our actual calendar. And then, oh, don't do that. All right. And then we actually need to track what we're doing. Okay. So the first two tabs, oops. The first one is goal tracking. Okay. You're gonna be like, Amy, you just made life so easy for me. Let's see if it'll open. There we go. Okay. Goal tracking. This is broken down by week. So this is January, the week of the 14th. It's got weekly little lines here, yellow. Yellow means we fill it in. So how many appointments did we hold the first week of January? Right? We can plug it in there. Let's say that this was this week. We can plug it in there. It's going to tell us how many we should have. Then it's going to look at our monthly goals and break that down. This is all pulling the data from that economic sheet. So it's going to pre-pull this all over for you. It's going to calculate how many did we actually have versus how many were our goal for the month. How close are we to reaching that goal? And then it's also going to track it to the year. It's going to automatically add up those buyer and seller ones and tell you how close you are to reaching that. Okay. So if I've had one appointment so far in January, I'm at a 4% of reaching my goal for the year. Magic. The next one is how many agreements signed. These would either be buyer agreements, like agency agreements, or listing agreements. You're going to keep track of how many you get signed each week. It's going to track those for you. Then you're going to track how many closings you had, both buyers and sellers here. How many did you actually close? So that it can track those against your goal for the year. Then you're going to put in here, this next one is personal GCI. GCI stands for gross commission income. So that is the gross that you made, like before your brokerage took the split, before you paid your transaction coordinator. What was the gross commission that you earned on that transaction? You're going to put that in here on a weekly basis. If you had 2 closings one week, you're going to add those numbers up. If you had 4 closings, add them all up. It's going to break it down to what your goal is per week, what your goal is for the month in order to reach your goal for the year. And again, it's pulling this, all this data already is just pulling it straight from the economic tabby, the economic model tab for you. Okay. Then we're going to make our commitments from last week. What were our how did we do against those commitments, right? We're keeping ourselves accountable to our actions. I know this is amazing. And then what has happened since last week? So we have what were our commitments from last week? What are our results from those commitments? And what has happened since last week? We're creating ourselves a trail of actions so that when we have no closings in the month of February, we can go back and be like, what were our commitments? Oh, look, I failed on getting any of those commitments done. Or what has happened since last week? Oh, my dog passed away. I was really sad, so I wasn't doing the lead gen that I was supposed to be doing. Like, we can go back and track what has happened that prevented us from doing things or that led to our success. Oh my gosh, we had 4 appointments last week. What led to that? Oh, look at those commitments. I made all 50 phone calls and set way more appointments than I was supposed to set, right? We can go back and look at it. Oops, hold on. And see where we're winning and where we're failing right here. What business challenges are you currently facing? Right? We can keep track of that on a week-to-week basis. What personal challenges are we currently facing? Because as much as we'd like to believe that our personal and our professional lives are separate, they are not. They are intertwined. And what's happening personally is going to affect what's happening in our business. What should you know? Oh, how will you know you have succeeded? Oh, wait, hold on. I skipped a couple. Personal challenges you're currently facing. What should you focus on to move you forward? These are going to turn into our commitments. And how will you know you have succeeded in moving forward? Okay. In addition to that, we're going to track what active listings we had the month of January, what listings are pending, and what is our pipeline, our active buyer and coming soon listings that we're preparing for. We've got a little pipeline. In case you didn't know this too, when you're in Google Sheets, at least, if we type something like our active listings 123 Sample Street, if you hit Control, Return, it goes to the next line. Sample Street, Control, Return. So if you're like me and you like them to be on separate lines, not just kind of all jumbled together with commas, Control, Return, we'll take care of that for you. Makes it nice and pretty. So anyways, there you can track your active listings, your pending by month, and your pipeline, who's coming soon. And you can do this on a month-by-month basis. Usually what I do is once the month has passed, I just come in here. If you highlight the column, you right-click on it or control-click on a Mac, you can hide those rows and they go away. So now we only, our first line is going to be the week or the month that we're focusing on now. To unhide those, in case you're like, Amy, how do I get those back? Because you just showed me something I'd never seen before. We just highlight again over here on the numbers. We just click the row, go up a couple, right click on it again or control click, and we hit unhide rows and they magically reappear. Okay, but you have to click the whole row to do that. And if you click one and hit shift and the down arrow, it'll highlight the rows underneath it, or shift up will go up. So there's your spreadsheet lesson for the day. So that is your goal tracking. Make sure you're tracking your actions and your successes so that you have something to go back and know. You should always know how close you are to your goals. Any questions about the goal tracking spreadsheet?
No questions. I just absolutely awesome. Because it showed me too where there were some missing components in the data that I put together, because I did get to the end of the year and there was some things that I was kind of like, okay, I didn't know what that number was, which means that it was things that I wasn't tracking. So this was very thorough and very helpful.
Good, good. The next spreadsheet that you can utilize in addition to this one, so this is your business planning tracking. This is going to track those things, is our lead gen tracking, right? If you've attended any of my trainings in the past, I'm always like, know your numbers, track everything. So I've set this one up with just a few items. You can tweak it and change it as necessary or as your lead gen methods. The first one's database or sphere of influence. How many calls did you make? How many conversations did you have? How many text messages did you send? How many replies did you get? How many social media interactions did you have? How many replies, right? How many messages did you have? How many replies? Did you deliver any pop buys? Did you receive any referrals? And did you set any appointments? Right? This way we can track our actions. Leads from listings, number of active listings that you have, number of sign calls, number of mailers sent out, number of open houses hosted. This is in regards to your specific listings. Number of calls made, number of social media posts, number of leads added to your database, and number of appointments set, right? And you may decide that you want some other things in here or tweak it. These are just to like spur your interest. The next one I added was open houses, number of open houses hosted. I have number of open house hours, actually, number of door knocks, number of doors opened or conversations that you had during door knocking, number of social media posts, number of leads added to your database, and number of appointments set, right? Cold calls, farm, You might have other open house or other lead gen methods, so just switch these out, but just know that you should be tracking all of your actions. What are you doing? What's your system for that lead gen? What are your key performance indicators? What are we tracking? What kind of interactions and how many appointments is it leading to? Right? At the end of this, it has what worked well. So each week you can report back what worked well, what didn't work well, what needs to be changed. What should you focus on next week? Right? That's going to help us evaluate our lead gen methods. What's working, what's not working, what needs to be changed, what do I need to focus on? All right. That's all I've got for you today. If you're like, Amy, I hate spreadsheets, hire a cyberbacker. You can just text them all that information and they'll fill it in for you. We can get somebody that just does data entry for you 24/7. In fact, you can hire a cyberbacker. They can actually be on the phone with you as you're calling those clients, taking notes for you and putting them in your database for you. It's like magic, I promise. Free up your time so that all you have to do is like make appointments and set appointments and have the fun associated with being a realtor instead of the things that you don't like doing. Most of us didn't become real estate agents because we love admin work. Any questions, thoughts, or ahas from today's training? Was it helpful?
Very much so.
Very good. Sarah, I really appreciate you being on my training today because you're interacting with me and I appreciate that. I think I'm just going to invite you to be on all my trainings.
Amy,
Yes, Deborah.
Deborah Hanson. Just wanted to say thank you. I'm driving home from Lincoln, was able to listen, not really watch, but thanks for making my drive more useful.
You're welcome. It will be recorded as well. So if you,
Yeah.
again, if you go and like and subscribe my YouTube channel, you'll be notified when my
I
videos get
definitely
posted.
check those out all the time.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure if you register for this class today because you're on it, that we will send out a link to the recording as well as a new link to the spreadsheet as well in case you lose that. So we'll get that all sent out to you in the next couple of days.
If you don't mind, could you send it to me because I'm driving?
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
I was gonna ask the same thing. Thank you, Amy. If I can get an email with the spreadsheets and presentation today, that'll be great.
Absolutely, Anna.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes,
Shauna,
also thank you, Amy. I'm doing my dishes.
oh, you're welcome, Amanda.
And I do have, maybe we can talk on a side note, questions about what I can really make sure I'm doing for my first year since I'm about 6 months in now.
Yeah, absolutely. Just shoot me over a text, Amanda, and we'll set up a time.
Perfect. Thank
Yep.
you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Shauna,
you.
Shauna, did we meet your expectations?
A lot of information. All I can do is one step at a time, right?
Time. Step at a time.
All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Fabulous. If you guys need anything, feel free to reach out at any time. I'm available. Thank you for the thumbs up, Anna. And we will keep you guys posted when we have another group training available.
Okay. See you next time.
All right. See you next time.
Thank you, Amy.
All right. Thanks again, Sarah.